Thank you for being here as we plan for the future of our schools in the Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, Beaumont area. Hello, my name is Dr. Garfield Adams, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Operations for Knox County Schools. We have a lot of ground to cover over the next hour, starting with some background and context on the opportunity to invest $66 million in the Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and Beaumont community. We'll also take a look at the results from the community survey that was sent out in December, and I'll share some insight into Knox County Schools' whole community approach to capital planning. We'll wrap up with a review of next steps and another opportunity for you to provide input in this process. To start off, I want to share information on how we got here. In 2022, the city of Knoxville received a $40 million grant from HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, for the Transforming Western project. As a result of this project, KCDC is projecting the Western Heights community will be home to approximately 400 more school-aged children by 2030. Those of you who are engaged in the planning for the Transforming Western project will recall that KCS committed to adding a new development in the Beaumont area to our capital plan to accommodate for the anticipated population growth. That same year, KCS began work on a 5-year strategic plan to increase academic outcomes in our Region 5 schools. We engaged with more than 250 parents, students, educators, and community leaders to develop the Region 5 plan, which was published in 2023. Many of you were also involved in that process, and those of you who were know that we pledged to add more preschool space in the community as a result of that work, and also committed to increasing the number of advanced academics offerings for students. So, when the Board of Education voted last year to approve $66 million for new facility investments in the Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and Beaumont area, we knew that we would have an opportunity to invest in not only the added infrastructure in the Beaumont community, but also in some of the commitments that were made in the Region 5 strategic plan. Before I address the capital plan itself, I want to take a moment to talk about the board's investment. The $66 million that was approved in the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan is intended to be used for a new development in the Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and Beaumont area. That geographic area currently encompasses 4 elementary schools: Beaumont Magnet Academy, Maynard Elementary, Lonsdale Elementary, and Westview Elementary. Anytime we talk about building a new school, it's important to know that a new development has the potential to impact feeder patterns. You can see from the graphic on the screen that the MLB feeder pattern is complex. This isn't what we'd call a pure feeder pattern, where all students a similar path for elementary through middle and high school as their peers. Students living in the MLB area currently attend one of 4 elementary schools, which feed into a combination of 4 different middle schools. Those middle schools, in turn, feed into 3 different high schools. So there are a lot of moving parts to consider. We also have to take into account the capacity and projected enrollment at each of these schools. This is something we look at anytime we plan for a new capital investment, and the MLB investment is no exception. As you can see from the chart on the screen, our 5-year enrollment projections look pretty good on paper. But those of you who lived or worked in the community know that this isn't the whole story in your schools. Capacity and enrollment projections are each based on a formula, and like any formula, these numbers need some context. For starters, we know there will be an additional 400 school-aged children in the Western Heights community over the next 5 years, which means we'll need to take those numbers into account. The numbers in red on the table highlight numbers that are anticipated to increase significantly with the influx of these students. It's also worth noting that our enrollment projections are generally lower than actual enrollment in the MLB community. We have a lot of renters in the neighborhoods zone for these schools, which means numbers are subject to increase or change significantly from year to year, sometimes even month to month. And perhaps most importantly, our schools in the MLB area tend to have high concentration of specialized programs and supports, such as the need for ELL, special education, and more space for intervention and tutoring. Our capacity formula does not always capture those concentrated programmatic needs. This just means that the actual capacity of these buildings is often effectively less than what these numbers show. I say all of that to say every school is more than just a number, and we are committed to looking at the whole picture when it comes to planning for new investments. When we think about the full picture, it's worth zooming out to look at the community at large. In the MLB area, we currently have a series of small elementary schools, but no middle school or standalone preschool in the area. It's also worth noting that smaller schools often come with their own constraints. Small schools generally need to share staff amongst other smaller schools, such as school counselors, social workers, and music and art and PE teachers. This means schedules for things like tutoring and recess are more limited. On site services are also generally more limited in small school environments. There's not always the capacity for things like CDC services, which means that students who need these services are transferred to a school outside of their zoned school to receive services. These are all factors we take into consideration when we have the opportunity to make a large investment in a community. We also take community input into consideration. Last month, we sent out a survey to every family living in the MLB area. These families were also included for middle and high school. As you can see on this slide, we received almost 300 responses to that survey, which was offered in English, Spanish, and Kirundi. It was also encouraging to see that we received responses from families with students in every school in the MLB feeder pattern. Of those responses, the highest participation came from families with students at the 4 elementary schools in the MLB area. The community survey asked participants 2 questions. For each question, participants were asked to select the 4 priorities that were most important to them, ranking them from most important to second most important, all the way to fourth most important. The first question asked, when you think about education in your community, which of the following options are most important? Participants could select from the following options: increasing preschool space, more options for middle schoolers to attend a school closer to their neighborhood, increasing elementary school space, keeping the number of students at each school in the community as low as possible, maintaining a supportive learning environment for all students, increasing the number of advanced academic options for students, or reducing the number of transitions students have to make between schools. Looking at the graph on the screen, the red bar shows the community's highest rating priority was maintaining a supportive learning environment for all students. The blue bars show the next most important priorities in the community were more options for middle schoolers to attend a school close to their community neighborhoods, keeping the number of students at each school in the community as low as possible, and increasing the number of advanced academic options for students. The gray bars represent factors that many participants included in their top 4 priorities, but weren't rated as high of a priority overall as other factors listed. The survey's second question, when you think about opportunities you want students to have access to, which of the following options are most important? This time, participants could choose from high quality preschool, more space for special education services, more space for ELL programming, more advanced academic programming for elementary schoolers, more advanced academic programming for middle schoolers, expanded arts programming, or expanded STEM programming. Looking at the red bar, you can see that the community's highest rating priority was expanding STEM programming. The next most important priorities, shown in the blue bars, were more advanced academic programming for elementary schoolers, more advanced academic programming for middle schoolers, and expanded arts programming. Looking at the gray bars, you can see that even the other three factors were of significant importance to the community. When we see results like this, it tells us that at the end of the day, these are all important. It really is all important when it comes to education, which is why we've committed to pursuing whole community solutions. This means looking for opportunities to maximize our resources to serve the most students in the most intentional, future focused way. We do that by balancing three crucial factors: input from the community, best practices in education, knowing what's best for students and which strategies create the most effective learning environments, programmatic needs, looking at where we need space for more special education or ELL supports, or even where we need more innovative programming such as arts and STEM. It's all important, and we have to take every factor in consideration when making a long-term plan for any community. The schools we're building today will serve the community for generations to come, which means our job is to cast a vision for the best possible reality for every student year after year. With that in mind, we've identified three potential options for the upcoming capital investment in the MLB area. You all know that our schools in the center city are landlocked, which makes the possibility of adding onto or expanding existing facilities impractical. This means we're looking at a new build, specifically a new elementary school, a new middle school, or we could do something truly innovative and build a school for kindergarten through 8th, a combined elementary and middle school. We are still in the preliminary stages of considering these options, but looking at the factors that were included in the community survey, you can see what each school would provide for the community. Looking at this chart, the factors listed on the left are the considerations from the community survey. The items in red were high priorities for the community, and the items with asterisks besides them are connected to objectives in the Region 5 strategic plan. As you can see, a new K through 8 would provide for the most flexibility, checking every box except for low enrollment numbers. A new elementary and new middle school would each allow for 7 of the 11 factors the survey considered, although checked different boxes. Every option would provide a supportive learning environment for all students, add capacity for special education and ELL, and add space for expanded innovative programming such as STEM or arts. A new elementary school would also provide added preschool capacity, added elementary school capacity, and increased advanced academic offerings for elementary school. But a new elementary school would not add middle school capacity or advanced academic offerings for middle school in the neighborhood. It also would not reduce the number of transitions between schools or keep student numbers low at all schools. A new middle school would possibly increase middle school capacity and increase the number of advanced academic offerings for middle schoolers, but it would not add any preschool capacity to the neighborhood or reduce the number of transitions between schools. A new K-8, for comparison, is the only option that would reduce the number of transitions between schools. This is worth considering when you take into account how hard transitions are on the students academically and emotionally. A new K-8 would also provide for every other factor except one. Like a new elementary school, a new K-8 would need to be a larger school with more capacity, which would mean students' enrollment would be higher than what we currently see in the community. These aren't the only factors that will be taken into consideration as we plan for a new investment, but they do provide a snapshot of what the community would get out of a new elementary school versus a new middle school versus an innovative K through 8. Keep this table in mind because we'll be asking for one more round of input from you in just a moment. Before we wrap up, I do want to share our next steps. We'll be spending January and February working to identify land capable of meeting the needs of a new school and planning for that development. In the spring, we hope to bring a proposal for the land to our board for approval. If approved, in the spring, we would be able to begin building design in 2025. This generally takes about a year, which means construction is tentatively set for the summer of 2026. Thank you for your participation.